Welcome to All Worn Out. I'm your host, Warren Meredith. On the show today, legendary Ottawa comedian Wafik Nasralla. He's celebrating 30 incredible years of comedy at Yuck Yucks at Biagio's this November 8th and 9th. Get your tickets. He's open for legends like Scott Thompson, Jim Jeffries, Tom Green, Mick Foley. Wafik has had an incredible career. Let's get into it now with Wafik Nasralla. Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Worn Out. It's a podcast about music. It's a podcast about what you're passionate about. And it's a podcast about what our guest is passionate about. We are very excited, lucky, fortunate, blessed. We are losing our minds. We have the amazing, the hilarious, the brilliant, the talented Wafik Nasralla. Wafik, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you, Warren?
Man, I'm excited because I love to do my research, pretty much the day before. I start digging in a little bit deep, and your story and your content is so awesome.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, congratulations on 30 years, which you're going to celebrate coming up here November 8th and 9th.
Yeah. Well, actually, the real anniversary is July 16th, but because summer's really kind of hectic with different shows, and I was headlining in November, that's when we're celebrating it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. That's incredible. And you were funny years ago and you're funny now. And I think that's probably like the best compliment you can get is like, you're still killing it.
I actually think I've gotten better now because there's sobriety and COVID, like losing the stage and not being able to perform because of lockdowns made me realize how much I really love comedy. And I got my writing and I got my performing back and I just ran with it.
Amazing. And I would agree that COVID put a whole new perspective on the stage and what it meant to be a performer. And when I was doing shows for like 50 people with masks on and this and that, and they had to, it was very weird. Like there was
in a venue that holds 300.
Very bizarre. They'd be like rules. The person who's normally going around like buy another beer, they're going around like mask up, and like, sit down, please. Very weird times. Yeah. And I was singing in front of the glass barrier or whatever, plexiglass.
That way too. It was weird.
It's like one day maybe those pictures will be in a history textbook.
I think so, yeah.
So you seem like you're heavily affiliated with Yuck Yucks. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, more so than anything else, though I do consider myself independent and do work the other rooms.
Okay, excellent. And I can remember being in high school and Yuck Yucks coming into our high school and doing, limited acts. And
that's funny that you said that. That's actually how I got started because they went to my high school. I graduated. My brother was still a student there. And they put, they had the show and they put this, come out and you try it.
Oh.
The students and the faculty. And my brother's like, you should do this. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, dude, you're the funniest person I know. So I couldn't get on because I graduated from the school. And then the president of the school was actually kind of supportive and said, you just go to the club.
Yeah.
Do the amateur night there. Don't worry about us. Just, you want to try it? Go. I never even thought of it. So I went and I did it. And by show number 3, I was addicted.
I'll bet, man, because what I really appreciate about your comedy and watching your special was your flow and how you're able, like great comedians are able to take a piece of a joke in the early part of their set and then they bring it back later on at the end or towards the end as like a final hook punch. And I think that's like a sign of skill and knowing what you're doing and an overall planning. I lived with a comedian for a while in Toronto and he recorded all of his sets. Do you record all of your sets still?
No, I actually just started getting into recording my set. I really don't like watching or listening to myself.
It's hard. Even as a musician, it's difficult. But I mean, it also helps us get better in the end. And he would listen to like crowd reaction. Like, oh, did they laugh at this joke more? Did they laugh at this joke more?
Oh, wow. I actually listen to myself and see what I did differently and if it worked.
Yeah, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
And he was doing like the Humber comedy program, which I don't think exists anymore.
I think it does.
Really? That'd be amazing. I hope it does. I know my program which I was taking has been wiped out, and that's the theater program. So it was me, the theater boy, and the comedian living together, and we had opposite rules being given to us. So his program said, go out every night, record, play, do a show every night.
Yes.
Perform as much as possible.
As you can,
And my school was like, don't you dare perform in the first 2 years of this program. You are not ready. You are not worthy. Yes, you are going to be sculpted and crushed.
Well, see, I guess I kind of understand, because you want to get better at what you're doing. The only way to get better at stand-up is to be in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
But when you're playing music, you just get tighter and better. And that's why bands like Metallica still rehearse.
You have to.
Yeah.
You lose your edge otherwise. And it's just like doing the splits. Someone was talking to me about that. And I said, yes, I could do the splits when I took dance and I did all that physical activity and I was stretching every day. But you lose it unless you do it every day.
That's true.
It's like, same as yoga or anything like that. Muscle memory. So let me ask you about, right off the bat, influences, early influences. So when you're younger, I know you said like you didn't immediately know you were going to be a comedian all the way, but was there comedians who like struck you when you were young?
Yeah, the ones that I would watch specifically were always like, was definitely like Carlin for sure, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy. I mean, everybody watched Delirious when it came out.
Yeah.
And then it changed too, because as I was going on, like I found myself watching more like Bill Burr, Louis C.K., Jim Jeffries, and that's the style I want to emulate. The personal yet edgy, and finding the funny in things that are like that aren't funny.
Yeah.
Because comedy shouldn't be easy, and a lot of people do the easy route, and I think that's fine. But I want to talk about things, and that might offend people, because I think that's the best, is to make them think about it. And if they don't like it, it's on them. I write stuff that I say, this is really funny, but it's not always going to work.
You're willing to jump out there
Yeah.
and fail if that's necessary, but you're going to say what you're going to say.
Yeah.
And I think that is, again, that's a sign of experience, or the sign of a comedian who's done it. And I wanted to ask you about hecklers. Have you ever had to deal with hecklers in your career, 30-year career?
Not really. It's really, really weird. I think that I've always just been interesting enough that people who might heckle give me the opportunity to speak, and I've never really dealt with it.
See, I thought you might say that, because they say that you're one of the most likable comedians in the city, or maybe on the whole circuit. And I thought that was great. And then I was reading something you said. You're the funniest one-eyed Egyptian on the planet, which I thought was something else.
That's a great moniker somebody gave me a long time ago.
And you were just talking about Jim Jeffries. Is Jim Jeffries the Australian fellow?
Yeah, he's very, very funny.
Was he in Wilfred, or is that another comedian? See, there was this show with a dog and a dog man. And I'm not sure if it's Jim Jeffries or not.
I'm not sure. I've never watched
Oh, my gosh. Okay, well, let's check. I'll check and I'll put it in the comments afterwards. But Jim Jeffries seems like a super hilarious guy, right?
He's so funny. I think in all the specials he did, they've all been great, but I got to be honest, the one in Toronto didn't do it for me. But then I saw him live here in Ottawa, and it was right after he got the kidney stone in Kingston, and it was brilliant. So I think everybody, and he's at a level where he's doing like a new special every 2 years. So
wow.
Yeah. I mean, it took me 30 years to write a set that I actually am proud of.
Wow. I mean, is that the most recent set, or is that going? Yeah. I mean, that's wild you say that, because I was laughing hysterically at your Comedy Now set. Like,
that was a good set for sure.
To be honest,
it was during my addiction days. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you don't remember it as fondly.
I do, because I wasn't all fucked up for that one.
Okay, good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally get it. I totally understand what you're talking about. And as musicians, I try and talk to young musicians all the time about like, what are you addicted to? The stage, performing, or the other stuff that's coming with it?
See, yes, it's absolutely true. The problem is a lot of times, especially when you tour, you do the shows Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, especially when you're a comedian, especially when you're on the road, and in places like Calgary, you're staying at a hotel with all the other comedians who are on the road, but now all of us have a day off and a lot of money.
Oh. That's what they say about musicians. They go on tour for 40 dates or whatever, and it breaks them down. And eventually they just...
It's the drugs that get you through. But with comedy, it's the drugs that you do on the road. It's once I brought it home that I realized, oh shit, I did something wrong here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. And kudos to you for seeing that and then being able to find your joy and your sense of humor and all that, even without it. I mean, because, what I noticed right away from that Comedy Now special is your star power. And I just say that because... I had an agent when I was 16. I've done the whole acting thing. I've done the audition thing. And I want to ask you, if you've done that, have you done the thing where you went auditioning for gigs?
I auditioned for a few things, stuff for TV. And Last Comic Standing was in Montreal. I auditioned there. And... yeah, I got so fucking high before I did it. And it was the wrong kind of high because it was in the winter.
Yeah.
So we smoked. And you know, I don't know if you smoke weed.
Yeah.
When you smoke weed and it's cold, it doesn't hit you till you start getting warm.
That's right, in the blood flow.
So then I went inside. I'm waiting for 10 people ahead of me. I'm getting higher and higher off the joint I just smoked. And by the time I got on, I don't even know what I was saying. I was just so hot, and I ruined it. And that's what I do. I destroy rather than create a lot of times, which is why I'm sober and proud of it now.
Yes, and you should be. And you're talking about the self-destructive behavior of perhaps artists in general, right? Like we all have that, where it's like we, first of all, have that imposter syndrome where we don't believe like we should be there.
That's the better people. The better performers are the ones that have imposter syndrome. There's a lot of comedians walking around that don't have it and need it.
Oh my goodness. Yes, they do. I don't know. I've been performing since I was like 7, and I've been humbled so many times and thrown down so many times and gotten back up again.
Well, that's exactly the what you got to do.
Right? And it's like there's always somebody more talented with a better voice than me. There's always somebody with
that writes something and you're like, why didn't I write?
Exactly. Yeah. There's always somebody more beautiful. Like that's not the point of it. Like you're doing it for your own personal journey, your own growth, and see what you can offer out to other people as well. So I saw you recently opened up for Scott Thompson.
Yeah.
And that must have been amazing. Have you opened for him before?
Yeah. We've worked together before at Yuck Yucks. Yeah. This is the first time he did a theater, but he was doing a much bigger production. Like he did, I think, like well over an hour. And it was, I knew the booking agent, so I got lucky that way. And then the fact that Scott knew me, it was just great. My daughter was with me. So we hung out with him before the show, and he was on, and he was just amazing. And and I was a kid. He was on the TV. I would watch Kids in the Hall. And to stand on the stage with this guy blew my mind, man.
I'll bet it did. And those guys are just so underrated at this point.
Yeah.
And if you are a young person out there, like, and you haven't watched Kids in the Hall, like, go watch it. And then, like,
it's all over YouTube. You have to check it out.
And then watch his new stuff. But, like, seriously, I remember finding it. I was obsessed with Saturday Night Live.
Back in the day, it was great.
When I was a little kid, like I'm talking about a little kid, and I would be late for school sometimes because I was a weird kid. Anyways, I love Saturday Night Live, and I wanted to be on that cast for a long time. And hearing about, Lorne Michael and his interactions with the Kids in the Hall and that sort of thing, it shows you what a small world it is once you start going up a chain, once you start going up a ladder. Have you found that there's a lot of like, what's the community for comedy like in the Ottawa scene? Is it supportive? Are people jealous? What is it like?
Well, of course, there's always going to be jealousy everywhere. I mean, I think anytime somebody gets something, we're always like, why isn't it me?
Right.
And I mean, I've been 30 years in this business and I still get that way. And I try to control it for sure. One of the shitty things is I think a lot of people enable other people that aren't doing well. And I'm really happy you asked this question. And I really hope the Ottawa comics listen to me for this. When I started, I became a pro in less than a year. You have to. We only had one stage. It was Yuck Yucks.
Okay.
Everybody in that era had to be good, or you wouldn't get the stage time.
Okay.
So if you wanted stage time, you had to turn pro. That's the only way you would get to go to Arnprior and Renfrew and all these other places to do stand up. I'm watching these kids now, and they're doing shows all over town, but they're not getting better because they don't go watch the pros. You want to be a pro, you got to watch the pros. You have an opportunity to go to the club and watch a show and watch a professional comedian and see what it's like to own the stage, how they maneuver, how they shift gears, all the things that take you to the next level. I was at the club every weekend, sometimes more than once. I would watch pros. I still watch them. I go to the clubs as much as I can. And that's the only, and I don't know if it's because I'm more passionate than some people, but I'm not an enabler. And people that I watch now, that was a great set. To me, the toughest part is getting on stage, but then you have to get laughs. And to tell somebody that didn't have a great set that they had a great set, you're just enabling them to stay mediocre.
So interesting. The parallels to music are very similar to me.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Every front man in a band wants to be a comedian. Every comedian wants to be the front man in a band.
Dude, I tried being a comedian when I was maybe 11, and I wrote some stuff and I went in competitions and I eventually bombed. And the bombing, like I won maybe 3 or 4 of these competitions, knocked them off in a row, being this funny little kid.
Yeah.
And then I finally bombed and I was like, oh, that is horrible.
That's too bad, because
Right?
I actually think you learn more from bombing than you do from killing.
You definitely do. But I was a kid who I don't know what the word is. Like I won a lot of chess championships. I was an overachiever. That's the word. And, I was writing comedy routines when I was 10, 11 years old. And it was weird that I was thinking this way at that time. But at the same level, like I just kind of always envisioned myself as an adult. Like now I've just envisioned myself as a kid. Mm-hmm. But when I was younger, I just didn't think of myself as a kid. I just thought I was an adult. It's very weird.
Yeah.
How time plays tricks on us. So let me take you back in time. Where was Wafik Nasralla born?
Egypt.
Egypt.
Yeah.
Cool.
Giza.
Very cool. And how long were you in Egypt?
My 4th birthday, we were on an airplane to Canada.
Do you have any memories that are Egyptian memories?
I remember an uncle getting very upset that we were moving to Canada and yelling at my mom. I remember being on an airplane, and I remember seeing my dad for the first time in about a year when we got off the plane.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Your memories, it points out that, first of all, painful memories stick with us first and foremost. And then the joyful, overjoyed memory is with you as well. And that's great. I like that you have those memories, because it's hard to think back that far. But I mean, coming over here, that must have been a journey. It must have been, or maybe it just felt normal to you, right?
Well, I mean, in retrospect, yeah, because I came when I was so young that Canada was home.
Yeah.
And then when you go back, it's almost like traveling in time, because we travel from Canada into the Bible, except that there's cars and stuff. But like a lot of times you're walking through areas where people are using donkeys and camels to move stuff around. It's really kind of biblical.
It's wild. I've never really been out of the country, not by choice. I'm just a poor boy from a poor family. You know what I mean? But it's just, I haven't really become that world traveler. My sister got to see more of the world than me, but one place I was always fascinated with as a kid was Egypt. And I remember being 7 and wanting to be an archaeologist.
Yep, Indiana Jones.
Right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to be an archaeologist, and I wanted to go to Egypt and,
and find something that nobody else found.
That's right. Work on mummies, work on pyramids. That's what I wanted to do. Or I wanted to be a missionary. And that's because of all the baloney that was being, or goodness, however you want to look at it, that was being, shoved into me at that time.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember my teacher was a Jewish man. And I can remember him asking us what we wanted to be and me writing in the thing that I wanted to be a missionary to go save people. And me reading that years later going,
wow,
you idiot. But Mr. Cooper was such a nice guy, such a good guy. He's the one who taught me chess. He's the one who got me into acting. So teachers can have such like a massive impact on us. You were talking about younger comedians. Have you been mentoring comedians for, what would you say, 10, 15 years now?
Longer than that, I think.
Yeah.
I any knowledge and wisdom I can share with them, I will. Some I take under my wing and help them more. And it's not for any reason except some people are, the ones that are a little more passionate about it. And there's a lot of people I don't know why they're doing comedy. I don't think they're doing it for the proper reasons of, being funny and, making when I first started, it was always like, I just wanted to make people laugh, and it shocked me that I got paid for it. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I just want people to forget their bullshit. Come to my show and watch it and say, I want to see this guy again. Yeah. And that's what every comedian should be striving for, making the people want to see them every time they're on. Like, I get people coming up to me after shows, because you play the clubs regularly. People come up and they've seen shows regularly, and they're like, I heard your name and I knew it was going to be great. And I love when they say that, because that's the goal of it, I think.
Absolutely. Having people remember you for being good at what you profess to do is the best, right? Yeah. That's the acknowledgement and the reassurance we need to like keep going and be appreciative of what we have. And I think that's amazing that you're so good to this community. And
I try.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's amazing. It's like you said, it's a weird thing where we're all competing, but we're all friends, or at least on friendly terms. Yeah. And none of us have anything but good wishes for the other, but at the same time, we're trying to find an edge. Yeah. And with bands, it's I don't know, it's very weird right now because of the internet. It's not the same way. There used to be.
It's all about going viral now.
Yeah, it used to be a battle about, reputation for the town and getting really good gigs and that sort of thing. And I still think it should be. But a lot of people put emphasis on internet. And of course, that's fine, but it's not my goal. Like, I see people have very successful Instagram accounts with their bands, and I think that's cool. Either I don't get it, I don't know how to do it.
It doesn't translate well. How many of those bands that have gone viral, you see them on like a Tonight Show, and they fall flat because they're not used to playing live.
Yes.
It's just something about being in a studio. I don't know if they're doing studio magic or what, but like there's a few bands that have been on Saturday Night Live, and I'm like, how did you get this gig?
It's very true. It's very true. Stealing the spotlight now is more than making the best music video. And
that's what it is in stand-up too. There's a lot of people that are taking up the stage from people who actually are good at this.
There you go. And so that's like Joe Rogan had all of his buddies come on, and then the big joke was for years that a lot of these guys were not funny. And then if you went to go see them, like they were actually like quite boring. And or not the best comedians you could go see necessarily. What's your take on the Hollywood comedian scene? Did you ever go do that? Like, I know you performed overseas, right? You went.
Yeah, never in America yet. I've never done the States. I want to.
Yeah.
I haven't. I've been in England and the Dominican and across Canada many, many, many times.
Cool.
And I performed for different people from different parts of the world in the different cities I performed in. But like England, that was the best because I actually got to travel quite a bit. and I was doing like Liverpool and Manchester and Nottingham and a lot of different places. But as far as like, and I think for me, it was making sure that I had an act that could travel.
Yeah.
Like the nice thing about music is, you know, it's normally will travel. Like you can sing about a city and people in other countries will like the song because it's catchy.
Right.
But yeah, when you're standing on stage talking about Tim Hortons and you're in London, they're not going to get it.
No. Yeah. You have to move your jokes and your humor around for your audience.
Find just stuff that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's a random one for you. Were you Letterman or Leno?
Letterman for sure.
Okay, great. So we aligned there. And then...
But there were some good people on Leno.
Yes, there was. And sometimes he was funny.
There was some stand-up comedians that you wouldn't see on Letterman because, I don't know, like, I think there's a certain criteria to get on, like, Letterman.
Yeah.
That some people didn't have.
Yeah.
And, you know, you would see, like, Ellen DeGeneres and Seinfeld and, you know, Drew Carey on The Tonight Show. But you'd see like, you know, Stephen Wright, Norm Macdonald, you know, and people like that on Letterman. So you had to go to both for stand-up.
Okay.
But to watch the show, I could only sit through Letterman.
We were always watching Letterman growing up. And then I became a huge Conan fan. So were you on Conan's side as well?
Of course, yeah. Like, and him and Bill Burr, because they were such good friends, and I love Bill Burr.
Yes.
I would watch, you know, hoping that Bill was going to be on.
Oh, man. Those guys are some of the funniest dudes of the last 50 years for sure. And like Conan for a long time was overrated. I think now he's got his fan base that like understand how smart he is. Yeah. But like, yeah. And I remember going back asking my old comedian friend that I lived with about who he thought like the best comedians were. And his guy that he always went back to all the time was Bill Hicks.
Wow, yeah, Bill Hicks was amazing.
Yeah, he always ranked Bill very high, and I went back and watched him, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's pretty
a different
great
level.
Yeah, that's pretty genius stuff.
And it's the making things that aren't funny.
Yeah,
and the edge and the balls to do it. Who's your roommate in Toronto? Or who was it?
Gosh, what's his name? Tim Ronan of Newfoundland. I don't know if Tim's still doing this or not, but I'm talking about like a long time ago now. But
who knows? He might be on TV doing writing.
He was a very dry humor, very sarcastic, dry Newfoundland humor, very great. And
Newfoundland saved my career.
Really?
I quit. I walked away. I didn't want to perform ever again. And then Yuck Yucks in Newfoundland reached out and said, "We want you to come back and do a weekend." And I told them I quit, and they said shows were already selling out. So I went, and it was a sold-out weekend. And I realized that I didn't want to quit.
So how long did you decide you wanted to quit for?
I was on the road for a long time. I was really, really into the drugs and drinking way more than I should. And like you were saying about your guitarist, you get to a point where you're like, it's the road. It's the business. I'm not going to get over this shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, getting into it, I should have stayed quit then, but it just comes back. And I guess that's part of the reason why I really don't want to tour anymore because, well, I mean, I think I'm stronger, but at the same time, like, I don't want that temptation.
Yeah. And to be put in the situation, and it is really... The hardest thing about it is when it's put in front of you.
Yeah.
Like I find that's the most challenging part of it.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's still put in front of me, but I have an easier time saying no.
That's good. That's very good. I'm good at it too, but it took me a long time.
Yeah.
And
well, cocaine is very fun.
Right? It's one of your jokes was about codeine making you happy.
Yeah.
About being in a shitty situation or being in
being
pain.
hurt, but then they give you codeine and you're still hurt, but you're happy about it.
That's right. And that reminded me of my days back long ago with oxycodone. And That's exactly what I remember of that drug was, oh, I'm so miserable, but I'm so thrilled about it.
Yes, exactly.
And so, great jokes as usual, man. But next thing, you've done a lot of festivals just for laughs here, Ice Cold Comedy. What's the festival life like for a comedian? Is it very different than a standard show?
Oh, absolutely. You're treated like royalty, really. They give you money for a per diem. They put you up in a hotel. You get paid to do the shows, and you're traveling like through the city. They're driving you around. You feel like a rock star.
Yeah. So you were talking about when the time you didn't really want to do it anymore. And that's interesting to me because I had a time like this. I took two years off because of trauma, right?
Okay.
Because of trauma. And I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to do it anymore. And I really thought I was just done. And then I came back and I did something with music, and I felt like somebody ripped me off a little bit, and I didn't like the way the band was working and the way they dealt with people. And I was frustrated, but then I realized that I still gave a damn. I was like, well, why do you care about these lyrics if you don't care?
Yeah.
And so it kind of like pulled me back into realizing like, oh, stop fucking around and just do it the right way and focus on doing it the right way. Is joke theft a thing in Ottawa?
Not as bad as other places.
Good.
And I think a lot of it's unintentional.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah. With songs, sometimes I write song like, we have one song where somebody in the band was like, that's too much like Monster Truck. And I was like, well, let me listen to the song. And I'm like, 2 words are the same. And I'm like, the 2 words are not in the same, like mine are in the chorus and his does it in the verse. So I'm like, I don't think like, yes, the feeling of the song is similar because like we're doing like a rebel style rock song and he's doing like a rebellion style rock song. So like, it has similarities. So I do think sometimes people just step on each other's toes by complete accident.
Well, in music, sometimes you get the same producer that another band might have, and then he might just take some of that influence to the other band.
And that's how genres are created, and that's how they create strong genres. I mean, country got so good at ripping itself off that it started ripping off rock. And
now it's not even country anymore.
Exactly, right?
Taylor Swift is not country.
And that's what happens when you start like integrating these producers came in and they were like, yeah, that's cool, but what if we use the 27-inch kick drum that we use in the rock song?
Yeah.
And we crank that up. How's that sound? And so that's the creativity of the world, going for the sweet stuff at the top of it all the time. Talking about other people. Oh, my mom wanted me to ask you if you knew Mike McDonald of Yuck Yucks.
Very well.
He's
I consider him a good friend, actually.
Yeah, he was a legendary comedian in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, his influence was ridiculous, and we got really lucky when. And I hate to say it this way, so I don't mean it this way, but I'll just say it. He got sick and he moved back to Ottawa. It was an unfortunate reason for him to move back, but in the time he was here, we had him for 5 years, and he lit this town on fire, and he lit a fire under everybody's ass, and he made everybody work, and he made everybody better just because he was here, and it was amazing. And I got to watch him multiple times, and I got to watch him craft a joke when it came from an idea to a bit to a full-on, special.
Yeah.
And it was, when you're watching a master like that, you can only get better. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about watching the pros. You need, especially if you see them more than once, because then you get to see, like maybe if you can see them more than once in a weekend, you could see a joke change. But if you see them like and sometimes they'll come twice a year. So let's say they come in March and then they're back in November, you can see the same joke and now it's even longer. Like, I don't know if you saw my sex shop joke.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you see it when you were at the show?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. That started as 2 lines. It's now over 5 minutes long. Yeah.
Your brain just keeps extrapolating further and further on
it. And sometimes I'll be off stage and I'll write something for it. And sometimes I'll be on stage and just ad-lib, and I'm like, I got to remember that.
Timing. How did you always just have timing? Did you always have?
I did. I used to play the drums, and I think it just came naturally from that.
Okay. Because it's such a gift, I think, for anything performance-wise.
Yeah. But also being comfortable with being quiet. Like when you're on stage, there's a lot of people that panic when the room's quiet. That means they're paying attention.
Yeah.
And they're waiting for you to say something. And then when you're not getting heckled in a quiet situation, and that's a lot of power.
Yeah. I think it speaks volumes that you haven't really dealt with a lot of hecklers. Like, I was asking somebody last night, she does like the cover band scene at Heart and Crown and Crazy Horse and these bars that get pretty riled up with young people.
Yeah.
And I asked her, do people try and grab the mic from you? Do people like get aggressive? And she was saying, oh yeah. And I just like push them away, this and that. And I was telling her like, I have it happen to me, but I don't get aggressive as much as possible because I'm not a big man.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times these are bigger men than me coming over trying to grab the microphone for whatever reason. And
do they want to sing themselves?
Sometimes they're like really drunk. Like in London, Ontario, the guy came up and we had already given him like signed drumsticks at like his request, and like we're super kind and everything, but he still came up really drunk and trying to take the mic to sing. And I was telling her like I did hockey play-by-play like 20 years ago for the Ottawa GGs, and it was packed with all these students and they were all hammered coming in for like homecoming or whatever it was. And this girl comes by and she yanks the microphone as she walks by, yanks it on my hand. And she goes, global warming is a serious issue. You need to worry about global warming right now. And I take the microphone back and I'm like, it's true, folks. It's she's not lying to you, but like, so yeah, I think it's amazing that 30 years you haven't really had to deal too much with that.
No, I did a show, can't even remember where it was, in England though. And they didn't like my jokes because they weren't personal enough.
Oh.
And they said, no, tell us stuff about you.
Oh.
And then I started just talking, and I talked to them about like the flight to England and crossing, the border services, and they loved it. And it was going really, really well. And it was just stuff that I never thought I would do ever again. But in the moment, it was really great. And I wish that I had stayed on that sort of feel for a bit, but I got that done, and I got paid, and I was just like, all right, well, that's done. Because you think that you do whatever it is to get through a show sometimes.
Yes.
But I should have built on that because it was really great. It was a lot of fun, and it was outside of the normal format.
Yeah. Well, that's just the thing. Is there formats to joke writing? Is there a secret sauce, or is it really personal?
It could be anything, really. I mean, for some people, it's, taking the easy route and talking about farting, shitting, and sex. Or, other people who delve into social issues. And then there's people who could just take a story that isn't funny and make it funny.
Yes. And when I was talking to you earlier about Norm Macdonald, he was so great, I think, at failing, at making a joke fail for so long that it became funny.
Yeah.
And he'd do that with Conan all the time, where he would just be telling a failing story for the longest time until it would come around and Conan would be like, really? You made us wait like 4 minutes and that's the punchline?
Yeah.
And you're losing your mind over it.
But then he'd save it and then he'd do something else and it would be great.
And I love him with The View, right? Whenever you go on The View and he'd checkmate these ladies. Not that they weren't smart ladies, but they could have found smarter, I'll just say that much. And yeah, he would get them to say things and just corner them. Mm-hmm. And same thing he would do with O.J. Simpson. Like, comedians are so important because they're truth talkers, they're truth tellers. And were you always vulnerable? Were you always able to just tell the truth about yourself?
As much as possible, yeah. I think there's certain things that you just sort of know not to talk about because you just can't make it funny.
When I was a kid, that was my gift of comedy, was I had no shame in talking about what was wrong with me. Mm-hmm. And
but it also depends on the context. I know some people who have brilliant abortion jokes, but I know other people that have abortion jokes just because of the word abortion's in it.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Do you see comedians where you're like, oh, there's Jerry again? Like, I've seen Jerry for 30 years and like curse him. Like, is there any of that?
Well, not really.
That's good.
I think to me, the one thing that's different now, like I was saying, is that we had to get good quick. We became pros in a year. I'm still watching some of the kids that are coming up who've been doing it for 8 years and they're still not pros.
Do you think that's because kids today don't believe that there's necessarily a right way to do things?
Well, that could be part of it, but also they don't want to put more effort into it than they already do.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it's the same thing with music is like where you set your standards, right? Like you have to set your own standards and live by those and then find people that challenge you.
But with music, you listen to other bands, right? You listen to other music for influence, for, inspiration. And that's what comedians should do too. They should watch, and not just watch the big name ones that are doing a Netflix special. Go out and watch the guys that are grinding it out in the clubs, because that's when you see what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Your first step isn't going to be a Netflix theater. It's going to be a club on a Thursday. Go to the club on Thursday.
Yeah. How ridiculous was it that Chris Rock got smacked while telling a joke? How absurd is that?
There's so many different things behind that I don't know what's real and what isn't.
Ah, good. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. I know that it's really, really stupid that Will Smith did it. I lost a lot of respect for him because of it, but at the same time,
what's really going on?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when I was watching it originally, in the moment, I fully believed it was a stage smack. I 100% in the moment believed it was a falsified, fake stage smack. And I thought that the yell he did, where the keep the wife out of my fucking whatever mouth thing, I really felt that was like a movie Will Smith, like the way he gets mad, like, that's his yell cry thing. And I really thought that was what he was doing.
And he's such a cuck that it doesn't make sense that he did this.
Right?
Like, why would you defend the one person that's making you look so weak and stupid?
Yeah. Yeah. All the time. And it's very bizarre, that whole situation. With Diddy, right? We find we're pulling the strings of Hollywood. And it goes back to Weinstein and to what I tell people about the industry. And that is what I learned when I was 16, because like I was living in Chesterville, which is, 1,500 people. And I wanted an agent. So I contacted an agent in Toronto. And I told her what I wanted, and I said, I've got headshots, and I look at my resume, I took dance, and I've done this, and I did school plays. And she said, you're interesting as hell, so just come meet me. So I got Dad to drive me 5 hours to meet her.
Wow.
And I landed the gig at the job, and she started sending me out to auditions. And Dad would drive me 5 hours in.
It's amazing.
And out. And what I learned really quick was, it's a lot of baloney. And so it was me with
because a lot of times they already know who they want.
Exactly. And you get put in these bizarre situations. So like I was in a room with like 11 other gingers who all had like very similar looks to me, but we were all just varying height. And then we were all dressed like nerds. And so then they played a song and we all had to dance like nerds. Okay. And I won that and I beat them all and I got the part. And then I went to be on the music video and the director came like right away and was like, we had to cut your part because like my friends are here and I'm putting them in as the nerds.
Wow.
I'm really sorry about that. You're still going to get paid.
Yeah.
Right. I learned very quickly about the industry and how it works and how a casting director might get 1,000 pictures for one character. And so this is the problem with Harvey Weinstein this is where the evil creeps in. Is how do you pick between 1,000 of the same people?
Exactly. And that's when they could do that. How badly do you want this part?
Correct. And this is the badness of Hollywood. I mean, and why women were taken advantage of for so long, and men, and that's becoming more and more apparent now, which was not talked about at all. And now it's going to become a focal point in the next few years.
I think Terry Crews coming out and saying, that was a big one.
Definitely. Terry Crews saying that was huge. And all of them talking honestly, whenever they, like, when Jim Carrey started speaking honestly before everybody, before a lot of people.
Yeah, with
right?
Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah.
And he's being ostracized for his honesty of why he won't work in Hollywood anymore. And the only reason he does the Sonic movies is because it's from Japan and it's like completely unrelated.
It's for children.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with the Hollywood. And yeah, you just know he knows so much heartbreaking information.
Well, and I mean, I kind of imagine that he was at some of those parties that we're hearing about now.
I do too.
See, that's the other part of it. A lot of people talk about, well, I would have left at one. The problem is, like, I know me. And
when the show begins.
There's many times I've gone to after hours events and you don't walk out less drunk. You know what I mean? Or less high.
Yeah.
You get there, things happen. And I know that if somebody said, well, at 1 o'clock, some people leave and some people stay. And I'd be like, I think I'm going to stay. I'd probably be like, oh shit, I didn't know this was going to happen. But yeah.
If I was drinking, I'd be interested in the show, at least to start.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying I would support,
Well, Cat Williams, I mean, we're talking about, well, I didn't know that guy was gay.
Oh my God. Cat Williams, what a juggernaut. Yeah. Wow. I think he's hilarious.
He's a beast. Of a comedian, and he's beautiful for telling everything as it is.
Yeah, the truth.
And having the balls and come out and, standing his ground. And even with Shannon Sharp saying, what are you saying? You're going to get yourself blacklisted. And he's like, all right, he blacklisted.
I've been blacklisted for 20 years. Yeah. And it's absurd because you look at Dave Chappelle and like how the industry does this, how the industry treats people. I don't know. What was your take on Roseanne? I mean, when they kicked her out for her comments. I mean,
like I said, I don't think comedy should be easy. She made me laugh. That made me laugh. All right. It's totally politically incorrect.
Right.
What she said.
Yes.
But she fucking made me laugh. I was more laughing at it than upset by it.
Yeah, I always felt like she was always walking that line of being that, what's that word? Like she's the comedian who's always about to say the wrong thing.
Exactly.
Like always about to cross that line. And unfortunately, like, but I didn't get malice from her like I did with Kramer. From Signs.
Like Kramer, that was hate.
Right. I sensed a lot of anger. Yeah. And it's like, okay, you need to go take a chill pill and like learn some shit. But with Roseanne, I felt kind of bad for her. Like she said something, maybe she said the wrong thing.
Well, I think, okay, my take is she said something, and when you really look at it, yes, it's offensive. Yeah. But the comedian in me was like, that's so fucking funny. And it's true. She looked like a monkey.
Oh my gosh.
I'll say it.
It's wild that it's become like this now. And you're probably not worried about it, but do you think a lot of comedians are worried about getting canceled today?
I actually say it on stage sometimes when a joke bombs not because it's not funny, but because I didn't like it. And I'm like, you guys going to cancel me? Take me away from all this?
Man.
Like, sitting in the basement of a club that, I can be back in a month or, whatever.
I had my 6-year-old cousin on here the other day, and we almost got canceled, in my opinion, because I asked him to sing a song about Halloween, which he did. So the song kind of went something along the lines of this. It kind of went, we made it, we're thankful for Halloween. We made it from the olden times when the indigenous people didn't celebrate Halloween because they didn't know about it yet. And I was like, it's accurate. But as soon as he started singing about indigenous people, I was like, what are you about to say, kid? Are you about to get us canceled, my friend?
And that's the problem now. You can't talk about something you're not. I have some jokes about the transgender people, and a lot of the transgender people that do comedy really hate me for them. But only because I'm not trans to say that. And it's funny because, all right, I'm going to get real here. I have jokes against, I'll say it, retards, handicapped people, immigrants, women.
Okay.
It was fine when I did those jokes. It crossed the line when I got to trans. So I don't fucking care.
Right. And I think that's the secret sauce to South Park over the last 30 years is that they never cared who they were making fun of. And they made sure to make equal fun of everybody. And I think that's the point of comedy. And I had friends who are trans, and I had a friend on who was trans on the podcast. And Michaela was just saying how a lot of them get a bad rap because of a few. That unfortunately it's like any situation where there's a few people who are like this and they give everybody this name because they're the loudest. But I can just tell you, my friends who are trans, I think they would laugh. I think they would, laugh. And
it depends on the context, I guess.
I mean, I don't know. I'm a ginger and I've been made fun of my whole life.
But you have to have a sense of humor because of that.
Yeah, I've been made fun of since day one.
But trans people are trans in the last 12 years, 15 years. I don't care what they say, that it's existed since 19 whatever or 18 and whatever, or even back in the Bible days. It didn't when I was a kid.
It's wild because when I was 16, 17, we had a teacher in my English lit class, and she told us all about what was going to happen. And she was like, I've been in university for 10 years because I just can't stop going to school because I'm just addicted to it. She didn't have a master's or anything. She just kept going, taking more classes. And so she was like, and what I'm going to tell you right now is there's this thing called the postmodernism. And so that means anything could be anything.
Yeah.
And we were just kind of like, what? The hell are you talking about? And she's like, well, anything could be anything. Like, you can be whatever you want, and no one can tell you any different. And we were all just like, well, I don't know what that means. Yeah. And she kept explaining it, and she predicted everything that came. And so I'll tell people, like, she knew. Like, I met people who knew everything, how this movement was going to kind of come through like it has.
But because you could see it coming.
Yeah.
It's like, and just as an example, like gay rights, like they didn't have any rights. And then they started getting more and more and more. And now it's almost like celebrated to be gay. And we're bad for being heterosexual.
Yeah.
Because everything, if you give a little, like women's rights too, like they weren't even allowed to vote.
It's true.
Now they have everything.
It's like credit cards.
Now they took over fucking action movies.
And rock and roll. Yeah, man. And I
mean, like,
I don't complain about that. I again, everyone's gonna have their moment in the sun, I think.
Yeah.
Especially here.
I love the Warning. They're amazing. I love like the music. I think with females is fine. And comedy too. There's a lot.
Are women funny?
Comedian, yes. Yeah. Some.
I love it. I love the honesty. Oh, that's great, man. I was at the comedy show that I saw that of yours. There was a couple female comedians there, and I thought they were quite funny.
Yeah.
They were really good. And I remember growing up through the Ellen DeGeneres time, like being a kid.
I saw Ellen on The Tonight Show and couldn't believe how funny she was.
Right? And I can remember that and her groundbreaking stuff with TV and, all that stuff. And it's so much change we've experienced, I find, in 25 years. It's wild.
That's an example of the gay rights. Because as she got the show, she wasn't even allowed to talk about it.
That's right.
And then she came out on the show, and that was the turning point. And then it opened another door.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, I guess the concept of my two dads was supposed to be two men that were gay, but they made it seem like they weren't. They slept in separate rooms, but that was just, it's basically like chipping away. And it just gets bigger and bigger. And then eventually, like women in the WWE, they couldn't wrestle in Saudi Arabia. Now they're asking for more women's matches.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Things keep, like you said, things keep going like this. And then there seems to be like an elastic band effect where it will snap back at times and that's because
sometimes they take it too far and we're like, hey, relax.
Yeah.
The future is female. Yeah. And that's why the world is going to end in 5 years.
Yes. And it very well could. It's like, I tried to explain to some people, I was like, listen, we already have the loaded gun. There's like a bajillion nukes pointed at the planet. So it's just a matter of one crazy person, one person losing their mind.
Watch this.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's all it would take. So it's like, it's a pretty scary time. It wasn't always like that.
No.
I saw that you also opened for Mick Foley. Do you know Mick well at all?
Actually, I had the pleasure of picking him up at the airport and driving him to the hotel. And he's a really, really sweet, really nice, well-spoken, smart man.
What a legend.
He is. And I mean, like, we all know what he does in the wrestling ring, and he was passionate. He gave up his body for it many times.
Yes.
And you wouldn't think, I mean, maybe it's my own bias, but you wouldn't think that somebody like that would be as smart as he is, but he was super, like, it was a great talk.
Yeah.
It was a different perspective on the entertainment business because he is an entertainer too.
Yeah. And I think, like, I remember him from my childhood, and I'm really happy that he got videos out with The Undertaker. Like, The Undertaker retired, and he released a bunch of promotional videos to celebrate. And a lot of it includes Mick Foley because of their legendary fight,
of course,
from the top of the cage, right?
Well, he did the tour 25 years after the cage match where he went around talking about only the cage match.
It's fascinating to watch it. It seems pretty unbelievable. And like you said, giving up the body, it's like, it looks like you could die doing it. So it's certainly...
And he makes it funny. Like,
right?
He tells the stories, but I mean, road stories are always funny. I got funny road stories, even if I,
Mankind was so scary to me as a kid because of the sock puppet. Yeah. I did not want that coming anywhere near my mouth.
Yeah.
Like, that was terrifying that he would stick that into their mouth. Like, I was like, character features. Like, I love that. And when I got into singing, it's like I almost had to relearn all about characters and the character of the voice, and how that works. But that's neither here nor there. Also, you opened for Tom Green?
Yeah, many times.
And was he kind and fun to work with?
Yeah. Yes, he's a really nice guy. I think he's more down to earth than people realize.
Yeah.
For somebody that's done movies and been on TV and made a big name for himself.
Yeah, I'll bet. And that's the thing. Maybe people who don't lose their humility, like, he did it. He went to the LA thing and, like,
but
conquered
he kept
it.
the Canadian in him.
Yes.
Because there's that,
When he wore the moose, when he wore the dead moose, we should have known that he was never going anywhere. But I mean, all of it, like, even
Eminem rapped about him. I mean, he took over the Tonight Show when Dave was sick. He had an amazing career.
Yes, he did. And he released a country song not too long ago, which is pretty good. It's actually not bad at all. And is
it funny or is it just a song?
No, just a song.
Oh, okay.
Like, it's just a country song. Cool. And I was like, nice. I enjoyed it. And I was like, that's really cool and amazing that, like, you were willing to try and do something serious.
Well, that's what I like a lot about him, is that he takes risks all the time.
So was Robin Williams and Jim Carrey and Mike Myers, were those three guys like powerhouse hitters to you?
Yeah, well, especially Jim and Robin.
Yeah.
I sort of gravitate more towards stand-up. I don't know if Mike Myers, I think he was more second city than sketch, which is fine. I loved his movies. I loved his characters on Saturday Night Live, but definitely, there was more of a kinship with Robin and Jim for sure. Because stand-up is amazing. It's so pure because it's just you, your words, and an audience.
Yeah, I feel lucky that I got to witness those guys in their prime, and a lot of the guys we've talked about tonight.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm sure seeing Richard Pryor would have been incredible. And
I wish I had,
George Carlin would have been amazing too for me, I think. But, like, gosh, the more honesty they speak, it feels like Bill Burr. It feels like the more honest they speak, the better it is. So it's funny when you spoke about that crowd telling you, like, oh, just speak about you, just speak about your life. That's interesting.
Yeah, but at the same time, then you watch, like, Louis C.K. And he's talking just he's to me, Louis is almost like Seinfeld to the next level because he's willing to take some darker, and take chances, and he writes and he makes even the most mundane thing funny, just like Jerry Seinfeld did. But because it was another level, with the anger and hostility and, the softness, whatever he needed to get the joke across. He's definitely, like, if you say best comedian that ever lived, if somebody said Louis C.K., nobody would argue it.
Wow. Just based on that level of
ridiculous talent. The guy has written how many specials?
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't care that he jerked off in front of women. And the women that he did it in front of, I don't think cared either.
Sarah Silverman, I think, was one of them who like made jokes about it. I think it's really interesting. Yeah, if those people forgave him and moved on, then there's no reason for anybody else.
And he owned it. It's not like everybody else said that, no, I would never do that. He actually owned it and said, yeah, I guess I shouldn't have.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't Bill Clinton the situation.
No, exactly.
My good. Speaking of which, tomorrow might be a crazy day.
Yeah, I'm actually tempted to see what the results are now.
Oh my goodness, right? Like everybody, keep your calm, keep your cool. Keep the jokes flowing about it. I mean, you're going to have to come up with a lot of stuff. You're probably already percolating.
I think it'll be more funny if Trump wins than if Harris wins.
Right.
Because there'll be more material to draw from for sure.
Right. And we're going to go back to the time of every night, the late night shows do 5 minutes of jokes about Trump. And it's like, now we'll begin the show.
Yes, exactly.
We've done 5 minutes of Trump jokes. Now we shall begin the show. And I was always just like, stop giving them free publicity. Yeah. Like you're just talking about them, and in the end, you're just putting it in people's head over and over again.
But I've watched like the lead up to this, and I really think America has to be smarter than this. They can't possibly want Harris to run the country. She's just this blabbering idiot that just cackles through everything. And that cannot represent your country.
Wafik, you got balls the size of moons. I love it, man. Like you are a stand-up comedian. You are awesome, brother. And I love it. Like I was in the dentist chair, believe it or not, the other day. And this is like a stand-up comedy joke almost. But I'm sitting there and she starts asking me about what I'd like to see happen while she's cleaning my teeth. And I'm like, I can't like explain myself to you. You're cleaning my fucking teeth. And she's like, oh, Trump can't win. Well, it can't happen, can it?
And the problem is, what if you're a pro-Trump and you said that? Now all of a sudden your fucking tooth's out of your face.
Right. And she stopped for a second and I just said, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but he's won before. Yeah. So it could happen again. If it's happened before, it could happen again. And you should probably mentally prepare yourself for that. And I also had a problem with CNN immediately announcing, like a day after Harris saying like, oh, Harris is now here. They were announcing almost immediately that she was equal in the polls. Yeah. Like the announcement was made like that. Well, and I didn't buy it. I'm like, no, you guys are owned. And now you've immediately released this.
This is the same group of people that were saying a week before that she was unqualified and she didn't have any, like any business being vice president. Now you're going to make her president.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember being in high school and trying to explain to my mom, sometimes you got to watch Al Jazeera. Sometimes you got to watch CTV. Sometimes you got to watch this to get different perspectives. And now it's just like, I don't know what to tell people. Just keep your head up out there, folks. There's all kinds of things being said left, right, and center, right? And like, what is good and what is bad, man? Oh my goodness. We'll never know.
No.
Thank you so much to Wafik Nasralla for coming onto the show today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Man, you are a legend. Congratulations on 30 years in this community, in the Canadian music community, in the world music community. You've been busting your ass. And what I'll say is I couldn't find one negative thing about you on the internet today.
Well, that's one thing that I always said. I wanted to be the funniest person on the show. And I always said I wanted to be the one person that people can come talk to about anything. And at the same time, not be the guy that brings a cancer into the room.
Man, people say a lot of great things about you. And I think
it's really nice.
I think
nice to hear.
It's true. It's well-deserved. So everybody out there, I want you to go and see Wafik Nasralla November 8th and 9th. It's the 30-year anniversary at Yuck Yucks at Biagio's. We've also got The Horrible Show on November 9th.
Oh, man, that's going to be great. That's where I get to do material that might get us canceled on a regular show.
Oh, wow.
We tell them before, this is going to be edgy shit. If you don't like it, we got your money. You've been warned. You can either stay and laugh or leave.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
November 25th, Moose McGuire's. I performed there sold out a show before, and it was like bumping.
That's a nice little room.
That place was bumping, man. Back with Rockin' Engine years ago. November 26th, No Forks Given. What's that?
It's a restaurant right by Ottawa University, and it's a very small room. I think it would hold maybe 22 people tops.
Okay.
But yeah, sometimes there's only like 5 people in there, and they're still amazing because it's such a tight little room that it's just fun to perform in.
Is there a website where people should go? I'll put the link below or links below.
I should update my Instagram more, but the best place to see my upcoming shows is my fan page on Facebook.
Cool. We'll put links below, and make sure you get out there and support Wafik, support all the amazing comedians in the Ottawa area, and give them some love. Give them some support.
If you see a stage that's doing a comedy show, go check it out. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes it's not great, but
laugh anyways, folks. It's good for you. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you out there for watching, and we'll see you all again next time on All Worn Out. Bye-bye, everybody.